Hello friends, this is the part 2 video of the previous video where I showed how to sort the columns in a matrix visual. In this video, we're going to talk about that if there are different companies and they wanted to see the columns in a different orders in the visuals, how we can achieve that. In the previous video, it was only one way that you have your metadata stored somewhere, and then that is used to sort the columns. But here we are going to take it to the next level where the sorting will be based on the selected company. Let's get to Power BI and take a look how we can achieve this. So here in Power BI, in part one, what we did is we added the external sort order column in our calculation group and then use that for sorting the column. Again, in this video, we are going to make it more dynamic, that this sorting of the columns can be based on the customer who's looking at the report, assuming there is a row level security involved and the user logged in from a company and they have a different sorting order how they want to see the columns compared to a user from another company. So how we can do that? So, just to make sure, if you haven't seen part one of this video, do check that out. I will put the link of that video in the description of this video. Um, but quickly, so what we had is a calculation group which has two calculation items. One is quantity QTY and returning the quantity, sum of quantity, and then we have a sales calculation item which is returning the sales. And we added the sort column and to sort all that stuff in part one video. So in part two video, what I'm going to show is first we need a column assuming this is an external. Again, the whole point of doing this is that the sorting of the column in any visual is a data driven. It's not like we have a fixed things here in Power BI. So I created already a column and I will explain what a table. I explained what that table going to look like. So I call that table as a CG config. Let me quickly show you. What I have in this column is, first, the most important part is the name of the calculation item. So this name has to be the same what the calculation item name is. You can also use the ordinal, but I just put the name. So I have a sales and a quantity. So that's the name of the calculation item. Then the other, when I was doing this, I thought of this. Let's say what customer want to call this calculation item. In this case, the actual calculation item is called sales. Customer A, I have a company or a customer. So there's a column called company. So basically what we're saying is company A, for the calculation item sales, they want to call it the display name sales. So this is what they want to see, and the sort order is 1 because they want to see the sales first. And same company A, the quantity, they call the quantity the QTY, same as the calculation item, and then the sort order is 2. So basically sales shows first and the quantity second. But for company B, the sales calculation item, they want to call it total sales instead of sales, and for QTY, they want to call it quantity instead of QTY. And now the sort order is different. They want to see quantity first and the total sales after. So there's two examples here. The customer A is want to see sales first and then quantity, and customer B want to see the quantity first and then the sales. And also customer B or company B wants to see the different label for their calculation for their display names. So this is the config table. This can be longer, but the point here is, if you have a multiple customer, they want to use a different name and a different sort order. So this table will grow based on the need. Again, the key point is the calculation item. The name of the calculation item has to match with the name of the calculation item given in our calculation group. So the first thing what we need to do is we need to create a new measure which will actually do the job for us. But before that, what we need to do is go to our config table what we're going to do here is we're going to pick our display name column, because this is what we want to show, and sort it by the different column, which is sort order. I already did that. So if I put the display name here, so this is how we will see it. So quantity, sales, quantity, total sales. And if I put the company next to it, so if we sort by company, so already we can see company A seeing the sales is the first, and then the quantity, and company B quantity is first and the sales is second. So that is because the sort order. So first we sorted our display name by the sort order column. So that's the first thing. Now, once that is done, what we need to do is we need to add a measure which we will use in our matrix visual. So I already created that measure. Let me show you what that I call that measure. I called CG measure. You can call it whatever you want to call. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm saying selected calculation item. So whatever item is selected, I'm just storing that in a variable. Again, I'm taking from my new config table. Again, this is the external table which define the sort order and the name of the calculation item we want to see in the visuals. So I'm selecting the calculation item column, and then what I'm doing is doesn't matter what measure you use here. What I'm saying here is in our calculation group, which is the CG is our calculation group. Calculation group, the CG, the first table is the table name and this is the column name. So calculation group calculation item is equal to the currently selected calculation item from the config table, and this is pretty much what we want to do first. So let's see what this will achieve for us. If we use this, I'm gonna if we go to this particular matrix visual. So let's remove the from the columns calculation group from the column names. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the new config table and use the display name from that config table. So that's a display name on my columns, and my measure would be, now it is repeating the measure. Of course, that's what is on the sales, because these two tables doesn't have any relationship, and that's why I mean the calendar table and the new CG config table does not have any relationship. So that's why the measure is just repeating and giving the total sum. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove this the existing measure, but we're going to add the measure which we just created. Again, going back to the measure which I created, I said selected calculation item and then filter our calculation group on that selected calculation item. So now I'm going to use this measure here. So here you go, we already seeing some numbers here. So what we're seeing is the quantity and the sales, and then the quantity and the sales. So this is working. So we're getting the numbers. So at least for the quantity, we are getting the number of the actual sum of quantity. For sales, we're getting sales and the QTY. So basically this is working as expected. So the reason why it is working, again, just want to go back to the config table. What we're doing is we're taking the calculation item from this table, again, whatever is we are looking at in that context, and then we are filtering our calculation group. So that's why I mentioned that naming of this particular column has to match with the calculation items in our calculation group. So now this is already we are achieving what we want here. So let's remove this table for now. What we can do here is we can add the company as our slicer, assuming this is a row level security, and for demo purpose I'm using a slicer. But let's say if it's a row level security, this table will be already filtered and everything will be already taken care of. But for demo purpose, let's say we put a slicer here, the company selection, and I'm going to make it a single selection. The reason why I'm making single selection, assuming again this is row level security and you always look at the one company at a time. And I'm going to change the slicer setting to single select. All right. So here you already see when we have selected the A customer and company, and then we seeing the sales and the quantity, and it's showing the label and the order in which customer A wanted to see or company A wanted to see. When I go to company B, as you can see, my quantity is showing first and then the total sales is showing second. So this is already working. Again, this is the display name we are using from our config table, and in our matrix visual on columns we use the display name from the config table, and as I mentioned previously, the display name is sorted by the sort order column, which is again defined in the config table. So for now this is already working and it is doing what it's supposed to do. And now what we achieved so far, we have a display name the company wanted to see in the visuals. So the same year, company A is calling it sales, company B is calling it total sales. So now we have a pre-config a display names, and also we have the sort order for the display names. But one thing we are missing here, if you had paid attention to this, the one challenge is now the quantity and the total sales are the formatting of this is not correct, right? Because sales, let's say I want to see in the dollars, and quantity I wanted to see as in no decimal places. As you notice, the format of these two columns is the same. Now, in the original calculation group, we define the display format string for the each calculation item. Again, if I go back to the calculation group, here I said that sales, the display format string for the sales is a dollar, and for the quantity, it is just a number. So the original calculation group worked and it showed the respective format for the measure, but in this particular case, unfortunately, this is not working. The reason is now we are using this CG measure. We are not using the calculation item. We are just referring the calculation item, but we are not using that. So what we can do to dynamically also define the format string. So what I did is to achieve so what I did is I created another calculation group. Again, there's tons of things on the calculation groups. I called it CG apply. I'm gonna make it visible, and what I have there is a just a simple calculation item called yes. Basically, it's like a apply format, yes or no. And in the measure, in the expression, I'm just saying, okay, whatever the measure is selected, just return that. But the magic is happening in the format string expression. So what I'm doing in the format string expression, basically, again, the same thing. I'm saying, okay, whatever the calculation item has been selected from our config table, and then I'm putting a condition here. So in my format string, okay, if the calculation selected item is sales, then use this format string. Otherwise, use assuming there are only two options right now we are using, one is dollar and one is number. So basically, I'm checking what calculation item is currently getting used, and then based on that, I'm defining the format string. So how does this play a role? So if I bring this CG apply, let's apply these changes back. And if I bring the CG apply here in, let's say this is visible, make it do not hide. And let's say if I bring the apply, this on, of course it will not be a slicer. I will put it somewhere. Let's put it in a filters here, and we say okay, apply, and let's say filter on all pages or in the visual, doesn't matter. And then I say apply the format what I wanted. This is just to force the format string onto our measure. So I will hide and lock this so that user from the front end cannot change it. So as you can see already, as soon as I apply the format string, the total sales is now showing in dollars, and the quantity is without decimal places, the way I want to see it. Again, this is applied over uh, doesn't matter the order and all the stuff. So basically, in this new calculation group, which is just we said apply a one calculation item, and then in the format string expression, we are telling it what to do depending on which calculation item you are using. So now we have a solution in place. Basically, what we achieved is we have a external config table which give the display name based on the customer, and it also define the sort order the way the customer want to see it. So this is already pretty dynamic. Here is one of the bonus thing which I wanted to add into this one. So right now what we did is the format string is being fixed. It's a sales, then dollar, and the quantity, no decimal places. But think through that is, let's say one customer, like we made it dynamic enough, one, the sort order, the label, and maybe the customer also want to control the format string. They say, okay, you know what, our one customer might say, okay, I want to see the quantity with the decimal places, other says no decimal places, and maybe one customer want the sales to be with the dollar sign, and the other one doesn't want to see with the dollar signs, or they don't want to see the decimal places and all this stuff. So why not we add more into our config table to also control the format string, and then it will be really, really, truly dynamic, right? So let's do that actually. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go back to my config. So add another column in the um, config table. Again, this config table I created within the Power BI, but this could come from your backend system or somewhere else where you have stored the configuration. So I go to the CG config. I actually already have a format column and I removed it. And so let me apply this change, and then I will show you what I did in the format string here. So let's look at our CG config table now. So if we go to our CG config table, now we have another column in that. So here you go. So what I'm saying is, okay, for customer A, company A, for the sales as a display name, they want to use this format string. So I'm defining the format string in the config table, and they want to see the quantity with this format string. Customer B wanted to see the total sales, no decimal places, no dollar sign. This is what they want to see, and they want to, customer B want to see the quantity with the two decimal places. So now we can take advantage of this particular column in our configuration as well. That's where the calculation group apply, which we just created, we can use that. So this is, I already have a code for it. I'm gonna copy that. So let's go back to our apply calculation item, and then go into format string expression. So I'm gonna copy the code here. So what we said in this one is we stored, okay, whatever is the calculation item we're looking, they get the format string of that one, and calculation group config the format string, and then just returning that selected format. I actually could have straight wrote this without storing in the variable, or let's do that actually. So this is my now new format. So basically it's taking the format string from the config table instead of we define this logic here. So let's apply these changes and see how does this. There is an error. What's the error? Format cannot find. Oh, sorry. The table name is called CG config. Okay. Company A, what we're seeing is the sales with the dollar sign and the quantity, no decimal places. If I go to company B, and they call quantity QTY as in a quantity, and they want to see as in a two decimal places, and also they call sales as a total sales, and then they wanted to see the sales without dollar sign and without decimal places. So at this point of time, this is so highly dynamic and configuration, driven by the configuration, which can come from the outside configuration table or a metadata stored somewhere else. So basically what we have is the key factor is that the calculation, there is a column in this config table called calculation item, which is basically the same column, same name value is what we have in our calculation group for each calculation item. And then we have three different columns display name, what customer want to see, and how they want to sort it. So we have a sort column, and we sorted our display name with the sort column. And then we also have a format string, which we used to define how we want to format our output. And then we used that, it created a new calculation group to force the format string. And then in that one, we just said, okay, if read the format string from the table and then just apply that on the selected measure. And at this point of time, we have a solution in our place. And then previous solution, again, to check out part 1 video where we have a fixed sort order coming from the outside. Now in this one, we have a metadata coming from outside, but it is more highly configurable, which can be used for, different companies can have a different display names, sort orders, different format string. But end of the day, underneath, there is only one calculation group with the two calculation items, sales and quantity, and top of that, we are applying our config table. This is actually a real-time problem which I came across, and that was the reason why I'm doing this video. I hope you find this video useful, how you can work with calculation groups and the things which are not out of the box available in calculation groups or in Power BI, how we can control that and really make our visualization the way we want it to be. Let me know what you guys think about this video. Always looking forward for your feedback, and don't forget to subscribe my channel. I will be adding more videos similar to this. Again, many times I said calculation group is one of my favorite topic. Looking forward for adding another video in my playlist. Until then, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Thank you.